It's warm out there, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So warm, yeah.
It's my favorite kind of weather, so it's all good.
Basically, these fish right here all come straight out of Japan. So we get to import over. You have to actually order a week and a half in advance to be able to know your pars. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult when you're running your business to try to figure out what your pars are. But we have that pretty locked down here at this restaurant. So these fish all come out of Tsukiji, which is a central area for getting a lot of the fish in Japan, and it gets imported over here. So the fish that we have that's came in today, it's just strictly for today, which is kampachi, which is amberjack, which is the back one that's in the very back here, which is in the yellowtail family. The two that's over here on the left-hand side, these ones right here is called itayori. And what you can see is it's pretty distinctive because it has these yellow lines that run through it here. You can see the little yellow lines. It's a very tropical colored fish. And then the tail actually runs pretty long right here, like yellow lines. It's a pretty fish. And this is called itayori, which is a threadfin green. All right. Then the two that's in the front here, the complete orange one, and you can see it's pretty distinctive because of the eyes. The larger the eyes usually means the deeper in the water they usually are. And then for it to be such a bright colored fish that needs the light, and for this to have eyes of this sort, that's a deep water fish, is a kind of a unique fish for itself. But this is called kimedai, which is a golden eye snapper, okay, which is in the snapper family. Same family as this one, which we'll shift over to here. And this is medai. So this is kinmedai, and then this is medai, okay? And this is basically a sea bream, all right? This is a pretty famous fish in Japan. A lot of sumo wrestlers, what they do is after they finish the match, they'll actually hold it up as a victory win. It's a very big motto in Japan for this type of fish right here. And then finally, the last one we have here, this is shimaji, which is striped jack. This is also in the yellowtail family as well, though it has a mackerel lining. So the linings usually run through here. If you see the linings that run through here, this is usually in the mackerel family, and then which is a blue skin fish. And then this is shimaji, which is actually associated more to the hamachi family rather than the tuna family. Okay, and those are the fish that we got for today. This one is a shimaji, now completely scaled. And you can actually see the depression, like the difference between scaling with your actual blade and actually scaling with the skin. I'll start working on the kimedai, and you want to just get a nice little scale. These scales are pretty much medium-sized scales, and get as much scale as we can on. Once again, same thing, focusing always around fin areas, so that way we can make it a little bit easier for ourselves when we go to fillet them. This is probably one of the coolest fish I like. It's actually highly fatty.
Yeah, I was going to ask you which one's your favorite.
Yeah, this is one of my faves. This one comes out of Jo Kimedai, which is actually an area that's off the coast of Japan. And this specific breed lives in that area, harvests in that area, which makes it actually a lot more butterier and a lot more flavor in it. So you can see it's actually a flavor right here. Like so. You can also see it has a very bass-like mouth.
Oh, let me get
The mouth is actually very bass-like. You see it like so.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like that. That's how the mouth goes, like so. We should be done within an hour, where we actually have a guy that's going to scale, one that removes the head and gut, and then after that it goes back in to actually remove the bloodline in the water. And then from there we go into either we're going to fillet them for service, or we're going to go ahead and start vacuuming them at head and gut, which is H and G. Okay. And we remove the tails as well. So depending on if we need it that day, then we'll fillet it. If not, then we actually keep it in whole form without the head or tail or any of the guts inside. What those tend to do is that they actually tend to, the tail is not so much so, but the head and the gut area will actually turn the fish a lot faster, if not clean immediately. So we do seasonal. Fish are seasonal, and then they come and go and have different flavor profiles when you're actually going through the different seasons. So different fish have different seasons. But with the way farming and everything and the availability and the demand for the fish these days, especially with the pop-up of sushi bars and all that, since because we have such a flux of that, it's basically a lot of the fish, especially these types, these are pretty much standards, and we can actually get it year-round.
Really?
But even though we get it year-round, they do taste better when the water gets cold because they produce a lot more fat. Okay, so the fat content actually increases, so cold weather actually helps with that to make the flavor. So flavor profiles for all the fish is pretty much great once you start hitting the fall season and you get into the winter season. Aside from that, different fish have different seasons where they actually come into play, like Sayori, which is needlefish, that comes in on springtime, We have some like kohara and aji. Those come in spring and summer. Those get pretty popular. So as of right now, these fish right here are more inclined for the winter season because they get fattier and they get a lot more flavor to them. And that's another thing that's hard to predict, especially when you're doing the par system and you're doing like sushi, that you're actually ordering from a vendor that's located in Japan.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's difficult for you to actually kind of gauge what your costs are going to be,
Right.
and the availability, because sometimes the product will be out and it comes from Japan, and then after that we would have to think about what we're going to do to replace it. The first time I met my salesperson was at Morimoto, and he is a Morimoto salesperson from way back when Morimoto opened back in 2002, 2001. And I knew him back then. From then, once I jumped around to the other restaurants and did my thing, running other restaurants for Morimoto and that type of stuff, even to owning my own, which is now here, I've been using the same salesperson. They're called True World Foods. So many other vendors we use, like Samuel and Son, Indian Ridge, those types of companies we use too as well. But basically, our main source of provider is actually True World.
Who's who?
True World Foods.
Awesome. And so we've noticed, obviously, we go to a lot of sushi restaurants. We've noticed that your fish does seem a lot fresher. How important is it to you, like instead of cost?
Yeah, so cost is not so much the factor for me. It does reflect it in a lot of the guests. It reflects on the menu on the price point. So basically, every 3 months every 6 months I do a drastic change. Every 3 months I just do a minor change. That's basic. So the drastic change is when you reach a system where you're focusing on hot to cold, the hot seasons versus the cold seasons. So that's why it's a 6 month period between the two. And then after that, you just want to do a minor focus on the change of the seasons within the hot and the cold, which is the fall and the winter versus the spring and the summer.
So do you find that to be a stressful or a fun time?
Fun. Yeah. I like what I do.
Yeah?
So in that sense, that's where I have my full ability to be able to play and do something a little bit different and have a little bit fun.
Now, would you say that sometimes you dial down, like, what your ideal dishes would be for your customer base?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not a fortunate or unfortunate situation. It's just the way the business works. According to locations and where you are, reputation, those types of things, and what you need to sustain in order to sustain the business to be able to continue to grow, which is two sides of the story versus being a chef versus being a business person. So when you cross into those two things, at that point you have to come up with a balance on the menu, and the menu development is that pure balance to be able to create the business aspect and then also on the creative aspect of things, especially when you're the chef and the owner. So
Yeah.
you'll conflict yourself a lot. And it happened to me a lot, many times I was conflicted because I wanted to do a lot of great dishes, but you can't overload the menu with a lot of great dishes because they don't overturn as much, and then after that you have a loss of product. At that point, you lost in the business as well. Yes. Well, I just make it a point to actually make it a first name basis. You'll see a lot of places they don't do that. I think it's very important to actually get kind of close with the guest. These ones are scaled. All these are scaled right here. What we're going to do is the actual breakdown process. Okay.
Awesome.
Now, simply put, all these fish is considered round fish. So round fish is where you'll actually see it, where they actually have a dense area that's on the top portion, and lower portion is actually the bottom. So they actually fillet this way. These are all considered round fish. So there's only one specific way that we need to clean all the fish in the same proper manner. All right. And what I'll do is I'll start with the madai. So the first insertion, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm going to come around.
Ooh.
Identification. Because a lot of times what you'll do is you'll end up going through the fish, and then each of the fish, once filleted, all tends to look pretty much the same once you fillet it. So actually keeping the fish skin, that also helps with identification.
Interesting.
So we make the incision here. This here is the fin and fin. What we're going to do is we're going to do a cut here and a cut here. To avoid popping the liver because or else it can stay in the meat itself. Now from there we're actually going to make a down cut. We're going to cut that actual fin right here. And what we are able to do is actually remove this complete head. Now with the incision that we have made along the belly, that allows us to pull here and we can make a separation. And once we separate here, from there we're able to dig in and remove. Okay. Now, depending on what you want to do, we discard this portion of the actual fish, but there are things that you can do where you actually can make it boil down, cook down in soup, and those things. sack is broken. Once we broke the sack, then it's going to expose the spine line. Once the spine line is exposed, at that point, you're going to make a 2 incision. That's going to go on 2 sides of the actual spine here to actually break the skin. Once we've broken the skin here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually clean out the actual bloodline. Because this is the part that actually can create a lot of smell and a lot of bad texture and flavor to actual fish. And actually, when done, after that, we can put it right. So let's talk a lot more action. Here.
Yeah, got a tough spot right there. So do you have favorite knives for this?
So there's different knives. This one actually is a smaller knife that is I use for filleting those types of things, but at the moment we can still use this one. Once again, we repeat the process. We actually open up the sack. Discard. Probably not the prettiest side.
So
There's not many restaurants you can probably go to in Philly that will actually show you the actual breakdown of the fish.
yeah.
Because one, they usually get it already pre-done,
Oh
and
really?
a lot of them have them already pre-done and frozen. So it's one of the big things inside Philly. Especially,
Really?
yeah. You can actually have these pre-done and frozen, and it's a little bit more cost effective.
And once again, you guys prefer quality.
Once again, we actually focus more on the quality aspect, so we actually want.
Look at that. So where were you first taught how to do this?
I was actually taught in a number of places. I broke down fish for a lot of different restaurants, but never on a sushi scale. I started working with sushi on a full-time basis, really strongly, was once I started working at Morimoto. Prior to that, I just worked very softly inside sushi bars, just basically mainly packing out and helping those types of things. I did pick up quite a number of skills from it, but as the years went by, I actually fell in love with sushi and ended up just kept pursuing it. Mainly because I like the flavor.
Yeah, and you've learned actually a bunch of different cuisines as well, right? Like you studied a ton of different cuisines.
So I do like a lot of everything, basically from French, Italian, a little bit Chinese, Korean, also as well as Vietnamese food, and the Big Daddy.
Yeah.
Make that decision. From here, go right into here. Continue the process. So from there, we're going to find the actual joint. This bone is pretty thick, so you got to find the joint where the actual spine actually separates by the actual cartilage. And when it is, where you find it, it's actually a nice smooth cut. Okay, that's good. That's how you do that cut. That one, flip the fish, and then from there, we start to remove the cut.
So if you didn't cut it there, it would have been really tough to cut that.
It's really tough. It's like a thick bone. I would need my other knife, but that's the strategy. Now, in this particular fish, what we're going to do is we're going to actually remove the actual jawline, and we call this actually hamachikama. And what you do is you actually go around the fin, where the actual gill. You'll see the gill that sits right there. What we do is we actually cut into there, and remove. Once you remove this part right here, you can simply just do a crack, and then you lift, and then you pull. Okay, and then actually this is the kama. This is the fattiest part of the fish. It has the highest fat content of all fish, which is actually in the jawline. And actually, we save this one because it's actually very chunky, it's very large, and we can resell it to actually do a grilled version of it. And from there, we actually serve it out with like teriyaki sauce and that type of stuff as well. So these we do actually hold on to rather than discard. For each of the fish, you get 2. So, and then what we'll do is we'll run to the other side, we'll flip, and from there we'll do the same thing. Crack, and we'll remove. Okay. Stuff, but basically all I simply do is I take skewers, I stack them up, and then I actually put a rubber band around it. And basically what that helps is to actually scrape the inside when it's going through the actual scales. So what we do now, we go into a process of actually cleaning out that bloodline.
Is that just a tool you picked up on? Like, you figured that out on your own, or someone suggested that to you?
It was learned. It was learned. We learned through the industry. There's a lot of shortcuts that we learned in the industry, and this is one of the ones that I learned. And it works. It's effective. It works. Inexpensive. And it's reusable. And it's something that the kitchens always have, so you never have to worry about getting something else or it breaking or any type of stuff like that. If it broke, we just always make another one. Okay. So, got the cavity out. We'll do a rough cleanup. Exterior, clean it up, and that will be the last time it actually touches any type of fresh water. Because these are all saltwater fish, so we want to minimize the amount of time that they actually stay in fresh water. If it soaks for over 4 hours, it can be a little bit of an issue. Okay. Remove all the excess load. Dirt spots, stains. Get nice and cleaned out. So inside the cavity. Remove any excess and wipe out. The meat is actually soft. The cavity is pretty soft. The bones are hard, but the cavity is soft. So what we can do is we can simply just use our thumb, actually go through it. When the meat is a lot more tender, then what we want to do is you want to not aggressively hit it with anything like sharp or anything too strong, because what it'll do is it'll start to stab into the meat itself, and then that'll actually mess it up for us. So we want to always keep it as clean and fresh and proper as possible, especially with the fish. I guess you could kind of say that fine cooking therapeutic in a sense, yeah. I started cooking probably when I was a kid, a little kid.
Really?
Yeah, I had to actually feed myself a lot. My parents were never really around that much, so I actually feed myself. So I actually started cooking for myself when I was a little kid. But I think the diversity of what I know about food and everything, I think that's just because of the flux of kind of like a whirlwind of places I've lived in personally.
Yeah. So give us an idea of that. Where have you lived?
I was born in Bitburg, Germany. That's where I was actually born. Lived in Germany probably a total of about 5 or 6 years of my life when I was younger. After that, broke away and then lived in Korea, lived a little bit in Japan. I passed through Hong Kong and I also passed through France. So those are the two places I passed in. And then when I turned 17, I had to come to the U.S. And actually, to be honest, even though I was a U.S. citizen, it was the first time I ever stepped on U.S. soil.
Really?
Yeah, my parents were always overseas. So I had never really came into America.
So when you say you had to, what do you mean by that? Like, that's how the cards work?
Yeah, that's how the cards work. When you turn 17, or 17 and a half, it's time for you to unlive your parents.
Okay.
So your parents have to, either you can stay with your parents or they send you back to America, or any other. So actually I ended up staying in America. They gave me a choice and I said I wanted to go to America. Everybody wants to come to America.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was one of them. It's called nice snapper. And since we're going to be utilizing this one down, so we're going to remove the tail. So we actually cut the tail down like so. As we cut the tail, we discard. Fillet process, I usually start from the stomach area. I always feel like that's the best place for me to start. So that's how I actually start here. What you're going to do is you're going to hold up the cavity because there's still an air gap inside here.
Mm-hmm.
Hold up that cavity, and basically from there, you're going to go and you're going to feel along the bone. There's a bone line that's right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow this line all the way down until we get down to the tail end. Okay, like so. Now, once we get down to the tail end, this actually opens it up. We just want to do it open so we don't do a deep cut. The second cut, which is always the fin area, which is around here, you'll see it. And then there's a second area, which is another bone line. that bone line we want to actually separate too. So if you go in too deep, sometimes you'll actually cut into that, and then you'll actually cut into the other side or the meat itself. So you just want to actually kind of pick it. So you're picking at it like so. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to go all the way down to the actual spine. And you can actually see that blood line that runs through there. And that's the spine line right there. That actually connects over to here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we're going to turn the fish. We're going to do the dorsal side now. And then after that, from here, we're going to make our incision. Like so. And then we cut across the same thing. So we got all the fin area up. And then I detach the actual bone line that was right here through here. Now we're going to make the next connect right straight to the spine. We're going to press the knife down to the spine, and then we're going to just let it glide right across. Once it glides all the way across, what it does is able to actually just sit and make a nice clean fillet. The second to the final is actually we go at a small, just from the tip end of the actual knife, we go right above the actual spine, like so. And that actually brings it over to the other side like this. And from there, we actually do a down cut, where we actually go straight down to here, which will actually remove this fillet like so. Now what you'll have left is actually the bone line that actually goes into the rib line. And what we do, go with the classic French style as well. And you can always make sure that you never make a mistake or break the bones. And you actually follow the actual spine line and you remove the actual spine. So, and you make a complete fillet. Okay.
Beautiful.
So now you have this right here, fillet complete. From the spine line, there's a bone line that goes straight down that also attaches over to the belly side. What we're going to do is we're going to run the blade. We're going to actually detach that spine line to the actual rib line. Once it's been detached, taking a longer knife is a lot easier because what you do is you're basically going to go right underneath the actual the bone line right here in that skin cavity area. We're going to run the knife and we're actually going to slice that out. Now this is all the remaining bone lines that was actually from the spine line that's connected over to the rib line. And also the cavity, we discard. And from there, we're going to discard this little scum that we see right here. After that, we do a straight cut like so, and this is the fillet completed like this.
Beautiful.
And this one basically is what we do is like pliers or anything else. It's a tweezer that actually takes out the bones. With this particular fish, there's always a 4 to 5 spine line bones that runs on the top portion of the actual fish. So those parts we're going to remove. So we're going to feel it. So you'll feel it with your finger. Once you feel it, you'll make the attach right so, and then you start to pull the actual spine. So you'll take the spine bone. Now this bones on this particular fish is very, very tender. So you can never really jerk it, but you have to kind of press with your fingers down.
Because you don't want it to splinter?
You don't want it to break, correct. So this particular fish is very
delicate
in that sense. So
yeah, I can see that. They're very thin.
Yeah. So at that point, we've already removed all those. I don't feel any more. From that standpoint, we take it from here. And following the natural line right here, what we do is we separate it. And we're going to actually separate the fish and make it into 2 fillets. Now, we took the fillet, we quartered the fillet. Now we're going to just blanch this in a short bit, and this will be ready for service.
Awesome.
That's one. So now we'll do it in double time.
Cool.
We'll do it in double time, and I'm going to break down all the fish that's going to serve for today.
So would you say it's without fail 5 bones every time?
Anywhere between 4 and 5.
Interesting. So that makes sense then.
this particular fish is very strong. You can see the bone lines are actually pretty more predominant. Because it's much more predominant, it makes it easier for me to actually go, and I can actually use my blade
instead of the scissors.
Instead of scissors.
Interesting.
And then you can actually pop it out so, without damaging the flesh at all. Now this one we don't remove the actual bone lines because it actually is so depressed inside. They have a high likelihood of actually breaking. So what we do is we actually just fillet the one side, and then from there where we feel the bone line ends, from there we actually just remove and discard that little center line like so.
Okay.
So just for this particular one, and a couple of other fish the same. So instead of doing anything, we just discard the side. And as we can see, when we can go back, we had a little bit of a liver stain right there.
Okay.
And we're going to remove that liver. And then last but not least,
big guy.
Big boy. Alright. So, mythology is basically the same. Because it's a larger fish and it has very little contact on the flip side, putting a little towel or something like that actually will hold it down a little bit better. So
for the grip?
Yeah, exactly. And what we do is we're going to do the same thing. Cut through here. Flip it. And once again, just like all the others, just going to break the skin like so. Just open it up. Connect to the spine. Run it across the
Perfect cut.
And you go up. Like so. And then once again, and this is the two-part. Okay, that's the two-part fillet right there. This is the dorsal side, this is the flip side, the belly side right there.
Is one tastier than the other?
The belly side is always the tastiest. It is
because of the
also
fats?
Because of the fats. So because of the fat, naturally everyone likes that a lot more. You know, it's a lot more better flavor profile for a lot of people. They enjoy the fattier side, but there are a few people that actually detest the fattier side and they prefer the more leaner meat. Leaner meat is along through here, and then the fattier side would be running through the fish. Some people do prefer this one, but the majority votes for this side.
Perfect.
Which is what you would hear like toro or those types of things. Basically, all fish have toro. Everyone like associates toro strictly for only tuna, but that's not necessary. So all fish has actually toro in it. So it's just depending upon if you want to sell it or you can resell it at a higher price and try to sell it that way. We don't separate the two on a sales standpoint. What we do is we always try to make sure that we service this out sushi or sashimi on a full-time basis. And the leaner meat we actually use for the rolls and those types of things that are accentuated with other flavors. These ones are so much. It has so much flavor on its own already
that it can stand on its own.
Exactly. So this is where we focus on actually doing for sushi and sashimi, and this is where we focus on doing inside rolls or anything else. Or we're going to do something else or cook or something of that sort.
Awesome.
Okay. Once again, we're going to separate that spine line. Once we separate the spine line, now the good thing about this knife bends. So what I tend to do is I actually tend to ride the curve almost. Yeah, and I push my blade down pretty hard on it. So that way I can actually get a nice depression and just get only the bones out. So you see it's kind of ripped here.
Yeah.
So it's a very nice, good, clean cut. Once again, we're going to remove this little skin area a little bit here like so. And then we're going to remove this little skin area. And then from there, we're going to remove this part. And we discard. Okay. Now, finale. Once again, we don't take out the bones on this one as well. This one's too thick and it actually can break the meat a lot. So what we tend to do is we just fall on one side. Once we fall on that side, remove the blade like so, and then you have that side. Now, from the flip side, we'll actually go down. We'll make the first incision like so. Go straight across, and then we'll remove this part. And then the secondary part, we remove. And we discard. Now you have two areas. Now, for the rolls, we don't need the rolls for any of the yellows for the rolls. Place back.
Okay.
And what we actually need is for the sushi part. So for the removal of skin, basically what you're going to do is you want to take it from the tail end. You want to get as low as you can to the back area. what you're going to do is you're going to get as close to the skin as you can underneath, like so. And what you're going to do, because it's pretty slick on that end, use a towel, and then what you do is you're going to pull the fish. Okay. When you pull the fish, what that does is that separates it and tries to preserve the actual natural color of the orange on the silver side, like so. So you try to preserve it as much as possible because it actually gives a lot of aesthetic and color. And silver is just a pretty nice natural color to actually see when it contrasts with other different fish, especially when it contrasts with orange or red. Silver is always a nice contrast. In that
So that's really interesting that colors come into play for you as well.
Colors come into major play. Two best places to study if you want to study about the color coordinations. I tend to go to the art museum a lot.
Interesting.
And then I go to any of the museums where you look at a lot of paintings and those types of things. And what you can actually do, if you're not much of a connoisseur of artist, but you can just study on the colors, the color combinations that you see inside the painting. That helps, once you burn that into your memory, it helps a lot with actually when you do your own plating and you're designing your plate, and then you can actually start to notice certain colors will accent better, and then you can start to find the associated fruits or vegetables or any other types of items that may actually accent that food very well, also by adding the color too. So sometimes color would come first before you even thinking about what the ingredients going to be. So
Really?
you start to think about the color, and then you start to pick the ingredients. So that does work that way too.
So no wonder you call this your canvas then.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, would you say with the Godzilla, for example, did you go color first or taste first?
That one actually is a combination of both, actually. Macadamia nuts and honey, I just felt like the macadamia nuts needed the honey. So that was a flavor profile. For the color profile, I thought that the red strawberries, when I came up with the idea to put strawberries on top of the green, the avocados.
Which I love, by the way.
That one, I thought that it was actually a color contrast. It started with color because everybody was doing the green, but there was nothing on top of it. And then after that, I came up with the idea to use strawberries. It worked out very well. Then started to need I wanted to add nuts. I wanted to make it a little bit more fruity because I was putting such a strong flavored fruit in there. I wanted to actually add the nuts to make it seem a little bit more Hawaiian. I was in a Hawaiian kick for a little bit.
Yeah.
So once I did that, at that point, it just developed into what it was. And then the Godzilla roll, the strawberries, honeys, macadamia nuts, sweet soy, and then it just developed from there.
How critical would you say you are of your own work?
I'm actually very critical about my work, and I'm always antagonizing myself, and I never really think that I did a good job. So I'm always actually quite self-conscious about a lot of my work.
Now, would you say that comes from that teacher you were telling me about who inspired the name Umai?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing that he instilled in me to always feel subpar to what I'm doing. That always makes me reach out to do something better or something more. And I think that's something that we should all carry within ourselves. Because once we get to this one thing, we're on top of everything. Everyone tends to forget that there's someone that's always better. So, breakdown of the four fish, completely fillet. This one here, which is a kampachi, the amberjack. The madai, which is a sea bream. This is the kimidai, which is golden eye snapper. And then now, this is the itiori, which is the threadfin bream. Completely broken down from the process of when we received it down to ready for service. Okay. Oh yeah, we'll come back tomorrow, and then you're going to see the next set. You'll be able to see the tuna, the salmon. We'll be breaking down the tuna and the salmon tomorrow, as well as yellowtail. But the yellowtail comes already filleted, and it's in the vacuum pack, so that's how they tend to do it from that standpoint from Japan. And then they'll be just shipping that over. So we'll do a breakdown of the tuna, a tuna loin, and we'll also do a breakdown of a full salmon and yellowtail, and maybe a couple other items that we may be getting in tomorrow, and we'll be able to do a full breakdown. So stay tuned. We'll see you tomorrow. Only a quarter of the fish.
And that's tuna?
Yeah.
That is huge.
And then salmon. Then it comes in. This one, anywhere between 10 and 15. Cardboard is very good for this one we actually got imported out of Spain. Alright, so this is a big eye tuna. This one's big eye. Alright. And then you can tell by the actual color content. If you have a yellowfin, the yellowfins are actually a little bit lighter in color. This one's a little bit more dense. The next level up from usually yellowfin is going into the big eye. So big eye tuna, so it's a little bit more red. Has a little bit more stronger of a flavor, of like a blood flavor. What would we call like a blood flavor. But it has a little bit stronger flavor on that. At that point, this is a really good tuna. Tuna's good.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
So transfer this one over here to the cardboard. What that does, it keeps the cutting board pretty clean because the skin side actually gets a lot of contact with a lot of different surface areas. So what you want to do is you want to keep your cutting board as clean as possible. Also with the scale issues. This size, normally what we do is a 3 cut. So making the loins about the length of from the middle finger all the way down to your thumb. So my hands are actually extra large, so it goes like this, so I can actually see. So I do it by 3. So this is a perfect size loin situation. So once we measure it out like so, from there we'll make our first cut. We make an incision straight down.
Beautiful.
Take the next one, and then from there, make that incision and go straight down. Okay. Now once we've made that incision over there, the next step is to actually detach the skin. Once the skin's been detached, we detach the actual cutting board with it. So that way it actually stays on like so.
Awesome.
Just like that.
Clean.
Place this up here. This is here. This is here. So we'll start with the head. This is the closest part to the head. When you look at it, the head goes this way here. This is where the head will be, the eyes will be right about here, and this is your belly. Okay, so this is the actual cavity where the actual, the innards and all that stuff is inside of that. Alright. The first thing that we actually remove is actually the bloodline. So the bloodline is what the part that actually touches over to the spine. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're making an incision here, and then we're going to see this bloodline here, and we're going to follow that same thing. Okay, and then we're going to keep cutting down until we get that bloodline removed. So you can actually see here, right here, that's the area that we need to remove that area. Okay. So we can try to take out as much of the bloodline, but we don't remove as much of the actual meat itself.
Perfect.
And then just sweep this card. This is basically the base loin right here, and then this is the belly side. What we're going to do is we're going to separate the two. So we'll make a separation by cutting here like so.
Yep.
Right. And then from there, by pressing the knife onto the actual skin, and then what we'll do is actually cut it out like so.
Beautiful.
What that does actually creates a complete removal of the loin itself, and then reserving the actual belly side right here.
Okay.
From that standpoint, the belly side, there's 2 different ways you can remove it. I just simply do it like that. And after that, we remove the actual belly side of the loin, and then we place that up on top, and then just we discard.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. To break down the loin, basically, this is the soft part that's right on top here. It's a very tender and soft part because this is closest out to the outside of the skin layer. So this part is actually pretty tender. And then after that here, we're going to make this incision here and here at an angle following this. So basically what you really want to see is that there's rib lines that goes through here like so. The first cut, you're going to cut through that rib line and you're going to make a direct cut. So it's actually guiding you where to actually cut the first cut.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that.
So we actually do that. And then we remove. Okay, so that's loin number 1. The next loin, after that, you're going to see that everything kind of runs out through here like so. So after that, there's no major systemology to where you cut there. So basically what you're going to simply do is you're going to make a connect from here where the sinew lines are connected right here. You're going to take that, that's going to be your end point, and your start point is going to be right there. So you're just going to equate that. Okay, so we'll do that. So It's basically about like 2 inches. I would say like 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick right there on the top end. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna cut, and we make it right down to that sinew line.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get the sinew line, that's our loin number 2. Okay. After that, here, normally on the front side right here, you'll see it. This area right here. This is the part that we want to discard. We want to remove it because this part is not really edible.
Okay.
So from there, we'll actually make an incision like so. We'll find the actual line, so you'll see the line that runs through here like so.
Right.
And then we're going to make contact with the cutting board, and then run it right on the cutting board, run it to the bottom, and then we discard this part. This part is discarded. Okay. So now you have your 3 loins. Okay, 3 loin section right there. Now to prep this up for like sushi and sashimi, basically I like to use the most tender part. I like to use for sushi and sashimi right here because it replicates very much like beef. So this part is the closest part to like the tenderloin area of beef, and then these are more like again they're sirloins portions. They're a little bit more firmer, and then they have a lot more dense in flavor. So here we'll make our first cut, make our second cut like so. From there we have our loins. And this is what we're going to be using for sushi and sashimi. Now, I'm just going to double time it. I'm just going to finish off the rest.
Perfect. It's all about process.
Take this one. And sometimes that happens. So in the case where you actually separate the skin,
Yeah.
as you can see, the skin got actually separated here. My knife was a little bit too sharp, and I was actually not hitting it at the right angle.
Right.
So what it did is actually sliced out the actual skin. So what we'll do is we'll do it from the first side, and then it's going to raise up the knife just a touch.
Solution.
In a sense, because of the size of the fish, we're not able to utilize the actual skin on this one. A lot of people consider tuna to be the king of the fish,
Okay.
so it's the most popular prized item that's in Japan, and that they prize the most. So it's a cross between two. The ideology is the tuna, but in tradition, it's the madai, which is the same. So make our incision.
Beautiful.
And then this one a little bit. And that's it. That's all she wrote.
Beautiful.
Now we go into actual packaging where we start wrapping them up, put them underneath, and we'll get them ready for the weekend, and we're good to go.
Awesome. Did you kill that?
It's amazing.
Yeah. I feel like I've learned so much already.
So you let me know how you want to do it, and that's cool.
What did your dad do?
He was in the military. He worked his way up into E9, which is a master sergeant. He ran the whole southeast coast military bases, Fort Ward and all that type of stuff when he was here in the U.S. Overseas, he was running a lot in Seoul and Pyeongtaek, 2 different areas inside Korea, and that's where he was stationed at a lot of the time. So those are military bases all out there. So that's what he did. Now he's retired from the military, and then he opened up a little like beauty salon shop, like my mom. She wanted to do a beauty shop, so then he ended up opening a beauty shop. Now he's a hair professional.
Really? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
It's very crazy. You would never thought so. badass military guy, became a hair professional. It's kind of funky, but it's funny how it happens. We're working on the salmon. Now, salmon has a lot of alkaline on the outside of the skin, so which makes it extremely slick, the alkalinity of it. So what I do is, on top of the cardboard, I actually put just a couple pieces of the paper towel. And what that does is actually going to be able to latch it onto there, so that way I can keep it from not moving. Movement of the fish is probably the most dangerous thing when you're actually cleaning them. Because as they move, obviously, you can actually hurt yourself. So you just want to keep it as non-mobile as possible. So once again, as we did with yesterday, this is considered a round fish, same as the other fish in general, where it's rounder on the top side right here. Spine line goes through here, and this is your belly. When it comes in, it usually comes in already having gut, or it has already gutted. So it's just a G, all right? So it's actually gutted out right here, like so. All right, which is nice, so it eliminates the process of having to do it. Right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Now, this is Atlantic salmon. It's pretty common, pretty popular. It's got a high fat content, and it's got a nice, very beautiful orange color to it. There's a lot of different sources of salmon that you can use, but I tend to use this Atlantic. It's pretty common. And it's very consistent. So now, seeing that this is the belly side, now that we removed the head, the belly's like running through here like so. Alright. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another piece of on this side and just latch it on so that way I can actually start putting. Now, from here, remove this one. We'll start to make the first incision. Okay. First incision is always on the tail end. You notice that I always like to go through the belly side. So where the fin actually connects right here, not so pretty. Very slick. Where it sits like here. What we'll do is that we're going to make an incision here, going all the way to the tail. Okay. We're just going to break the skin. That way we can expose the actual bone line. And that's what we basically want to do, is just expose that bone line in a sense. So once we can see where the bone line is, then we can follow it down to the spine. Okay? We'll make the next incision go in, and cut it all the way down. So now you can see that I've made contact with the actual spine right here, and I actually lifted it. Okay? And then you're going to lift it like so. So this is right on the bone right there. Okay? We'll make the next incision here, because we're going to need that to actually separate the two. Take the back side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut, and then we're going to run the blade just to break the skin.
So you can find the spine?
We're going to find the spine. And then after that, from that standpoint, we're going to connect to the spine. Now that we see the spine that's right there, we're going to hold it, the tip to the spine. And then we're going to run it. We're going to lift it. Make sure it's separated. We lift, and then there's our fillet.
Beautiful.
All right. Next. Take the blade, and from here, we're actually going to remove the spine. So by removing the spine, you go at an angle, keeping the tip of the blade actually up. And then you're going to run all the way across. So once you run all the way across, you go underneath from there. Push here. Attach over there, and then there you go. This is the second line. This is spine line. This is discarded. You can break the bone right here just to remove this other bone line that we have that's still stapled out. Remove this bone line. Contact like so, from here, from there. Sure, you can actually make it a little thin so that we can move on.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. Now do the next one in double. see we use kind of a lot of paper towel for this.
Yeah. I guess for the grip, it's important.
Yeah, for the grip. We have our next one.
Beautiful.
It's here like so. 1 and 2. Flip this. Never put the skin on the meat because once again, the skin is actually a very dirty part. So you don't want to actually, when you're stacking them, you always put a meat on meat or skin on skin.
Interesting.
Once again, that's fine. Now what we'll do, I'm going to break one down. All salmon has the same. It's about 20 different the pin bones. So it's usually about 20 of them on average. So what we're going to do is we're going to never forget the side area. From there we'll start to actually clean out the pin bones. So you'll be able to feel it as you're running down. One of the fingers will actually touch and feel the tip of the pin bone, and then from there you start to pull. So, so as you're pulling them, then the other hand can catch them. So you can do it a little bit faster.
And the one we did yesterday only had like 5 bones, right?
The smaller fish,
Yeah.
Smaller fish had 5. Those ones are like a smaller size. This is a larger size, so they actually have a longer spine area.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought their spine here.
Yeah, you really whipped that one out.
This is our guideline right here. It's right there on the spine. So the spine is our guideline. So what we'll simply do is we're just going to attach from there and detach the 2 different areas, the top side and bottom side. Separate the 2. We have 2 points. We're going to cut right through the skin. Okay. Once again, this is the belly side. This is the top side loin. From here, we'll remove the skin. So basically, what you're going to do is you're going to push, and then you're able to remove the actual skin like that. So your skin should actually look like this. The flip side will look like this. Okay. We remove. Now this one's pretty much ready to go for service. We just got to cut it down and portion it into the service size. Alright, so this one's actually done.
Perfect.
Because it's a leaner meat and a fattier meat.
Right.
So once we get into the fattier side of the meat, so we're going to cut through here. We're going to expose that meat area right here. Cut around that little fin area, like so. And then this part we discard. So if you just go in a slight down motion, you actually can do it in one swipe. So this one we save. The infamous salmon skin roll. Another dish that I used to make out of this was actually the salmon skin salad. So I made a salad out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually really, really good.
And I see you keep the heads as well. So what do they get used for?
We eat it for staff meal.
Interesting. So what would that meal be called?
We grill the head, and after that, from the meat that's left over inside this area, we actually pin that down and we eat it. Yeah, it's the best part.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is it your favorite part?
It's the best part.
Wow. And that's something that you don't feel like you could put on the menu, though, right?
Nah, we can never do that. Serving a head just on a plate to a table, it just never seems to work.
And this is the sashimi.
And then this is what we're going to be using for the sushi and sashimi.
Yeah.
I make an incision here, like here, just the actual spine, so you'll see the spine that's sitting here.
Right.
That's not really edible for raw, but that can be cooked. So we reserve that one for cooked items. Then we make our incision here, And then by doing a soft little motion like so, you're able to skin the fish like so. So you skin it by removing that skin layer, and then we actually reserve this one for sushi, so actually nice and clean cut. We'll do that again. This area where the actual bones are. So we'll make an incision right here like so. From there, staying as close as we can to the surface, just to remove the excess skin area, but then still reserving all the meat. Do a slice motion and it's gonna be a little spot that we missed. Remove that. From there, make an incision. This is the tora. We'll make an incision here. Like that. And then, last but not least, remove this back area. And that's it. And then this part, this little back end right here, is pretty tough. It's not really tender enough to use for sushi sashimi. It's good enough for doing the rolls, but we tend to use this part for actually doing inside the kitchen for like the baked salmon, those types of stuff.
Okay.
This part cooks very good. So it doesn't need to focus on any of the fattiness or anything like that. Then we make sure we remove this right here.
Is that the spine? Yeah.
Spine line, remove that. And when it comes to cooking, we can reserve this area. We can actually keep it for cooking. It's not a problem. And that's our salmon.
Voila. Staffing. I want one. I'm gonna try that.
There's an area. Clean this up a little bit. It's gonna be pretty light. There's an area, a center line area that you actually can cut into the actual head, where it'll make it a nice and smooth cut. It'll go straight down. Okay. So basically, what we do is we usually, you can see it from here. You start with the nasal area, right here where the nasal is. You're gonna start there. I hope I don't mess this up. What we do is you actually open up the mouth cavity right here, and then from there you're gonna see it's gonna be a soft area. See how that actually just went right in?
Yeah.
Okay. The soft area is right there, like so. So what you're gonna do is, from that standpoint, once you make your incision, from there you're just gonna press down, and then actually separate the two. So the top side is actually separated now, the two areas, like so. And then from there, what we're gonna be able to do is
Hear it.
yeah. And then from there, once we did that, you can split the two apart like so. And then after that, we go into the grilling process.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We actually grill this whole thing like that. From there, all this inside here, and then this area is all edible in this certain part right here. And actually, it goes straight into there, and we actually eat all that part. It's a really good part.